Oh my gosh. It's been so long. I've also been hanging on to this to show you, Britt, to start off our podcast in the proper way. Take one guess. What am I going to show you to start our first episode of season 3 properly?
Is it a 3-year-old greased up cardboard sign?
Yeah. The backstory to why this sign is so nasty, if you're watching live on Instagram or on YouTube, is because I went through a year of severe skin ailments where the only thing that would soothe my skin was to put vitamin E all over my hands or Vaseline. And so that's what happened when this sign was born. So, and it has the back too and we are the Ignited Podcast because Brittany and I struggled so much with being synchronized while saying that. So we made it right here. I kind of want to do it. State, right? Isn't this like Vermont?
A wape. A wadip. Yeah, right? We are the Ignited Podcast.
No, I think this looks like New Hampshire and this looks like Vermont.
Oh, it looks like a state. That's what you said. It does look like a state.
Yeah, there's a little bit of uneven cutting right here.
Yeah.
There's Hampton Beach right there. All right. So, welcome to season 3. We are so excited to be here with you unpacking the incredible book, Why We Do What We Do, by none other than Edward Deci, with Richard Fleist, but his name is smaller. So, no offense, Richard.
Sorry, Richard.
Sorry, Richard. We might forget about you on the podcast this season.
Well, I'll try to bring up Richard. Yeah. I haven't read anything about him. What did he do?
He co-wrote this book, apparently.
Oh, okay.
But that's all I got about Richard. We'll Google you, Richard. We'll find out some nice tidbits about you.
Yeah. Why We Do What We Do is such a good book. We have to do our intro, don't we?
I think we do.
Yeah.
So, do you remember what their intro is?
Kind of. You have to start it. You start it.
Oh, this would be great if I remembered what our intro was.
I'm
Ashlyn.
And I'm Brittany. And we are the Ignited Podcast.
You did it so much
slower. That was the
acronym. Okay, let's use the sign officially. Ready? Okay. I'm Ashlyn.
And I'm Brittany.
And we
are the Ignited Podcast.
It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be this difficult. Yeah. If people are still listening.
Which you probably are, because we have ride or die.
We do. That's true. So we're so excited to dive into this book because Edward Deci, self-determination theory, that's like at the crux of what we do. And this is really exciting too, because this is our first podcast season officially as a merged entity. Because before this, Brittany and I, we held the podcast together. We would do things together, but she ran Teaching to a Riot and I ran the Conscious Connection group. But now we've merged entities into, what's her name, Britt?
Rewired Education.
Yes. Hey. So this is our first official podcast season as one business together, which is so fun. And
it's our first podcast season being full-time in our business, isn't it?
Yeah, being full-time. And us both being mothers too at this point. So first of a few things. First, in this new office I have back here.
Yeah.
With the very cute wallpaper, right?
It does have really cute wallpaper.
Thank you. That was such a struggle to put up. So we have chapter 1 that we're starting with right now, right? Mm-hmm. And there's only one way to start off this podcast.
Only one.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take the first summary of season 1 or season 3, or should I?
I volunteer as tribute.
All right. Let me get
timer.
Timer ready.
2 minutes, right? 2 minute summary.
2 minutes on the clock. I had it set for 25. All right. You ready? On your mark, get set, go.
All right. So, in the first chapter of Why We Do What We Do, Authority and Its Discontents, Edward Deci describes teacher-student relationships and the structure of them as a one-up, one-down. Other one-up, one-down relationships are parents and children, managers and subordinates, doctors and patients. So the teacher-student relationship is a one-up, one-down relationship. And that means that the teacher has the job of facilitating motivation and responsibility in the students. The teacher isn't alone in this. The student has other one-up, one-down relationships, such as parental, doctors, friends, parents, mentors, coaches, tutors, etc. But the teacher is one of those relationships. And because of that, teachers embody or are representatives of society and are tasked with what Deci calls transmitting society's values and morals. So teachers play a pivotal role in creating students' social identity, their social context, not just in the classroom, but their entire social context, their context about humanity and their role in it, how they view humanity, and how they fit within humanity. The book examines how people in positions of authority, like teachers, can affect the motivation of the people that are in those one-down positions. It also reveals strategies and needs of people in one-down positions, like students. Deci writes that these issues are relevant to fostering the motivation of people in one-down positions and to promote human autonomy and responsibility within society.
Boom.
Boom.
All right.
All
That's
right.
pretty good. I feel like mine's
Thanks.
not going to be as coherent.
Well, I read the chapter. I listened to the chapter like twice, then I read the chapter 3 times.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like read and listen multiple times too, but I'm in the newborn stage of life right now.
Yeah.
So it's been multiple times. Actually, I've left the house forgetting to wear shoes. So that
Yeah,
shows
I
you where
remember
my
that.
mental state is these days.
Yeah,
I look
not-
down and I'm like, no.
Yeah, well, so just to tell the audience members, like I'm reading and processing the information a lot more like just over obnoxiously, like because the blog posts that TTR are going to come out with, they're going to connect back to these chapters. So if you do want more information, like you want to dig deeper, you can head over to TTR's blog. And if you're listening to this, we're going to put it in the show notes. So
Yeah.
all right, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, 2 minutes.
All right. So in chapter 1, Deci really introduces the concept of why people might struggle with intrinsic motivation and why we as a society have a, I guess, interesting relationship with it, right? And so we start examining human motivation, and he ends up breaking behavior down into 2 types of behaviors that are not autonomous or not just created within the self. And that is compliance and it's defiance. So those are the 2 types of controlled behavior that you see in society and that we see in classrooms, right? We either see kids who are like blindly obeying, or we see kids who are very much defying what's going on. And so those all come from trying to control behaviors, and he examines why that is. We also look at how authenticity is so important. Actually, being authentic is more complex than you might think. So, you want to be in complete harmony with your choices and your decisions and not feel forced into something. And he examines how, sometimes we might say, like, okay, I want to do this thing, right? It's my authentic choice. But it's really not, because you're doing it because you feel control or because you feel pressure to do it. Like, let's say going to the gym. If you are only going to the gym because you make yourself and you're like, I don't want to do this, then you're not fully being authentic when you go, when you haven't really integrated that behavior into yourself, which integration is another concept that was addressed here and is going to be addressed further into this, not story, but into the book as well. And then finally, we look at why there is some confusion surrounding people being authentic and motivation.
Boom.
All right. So to start off this chapter, I have a quote that I found that I think is kind of like the bedrock of this text and why we do what we do. And it's because we ask a different question than I think is happening in mainstream classrooms across the country and the world, right? And so this quote comes from page 10, and it says, "The proper question is not how can people motivate others, because we hear all the time, right? How do I motivate my students? But rather, how can people create the conditions within which others will motivate themselves?" And I wanted to open with that because I think that's a clear distinction. Because this whole podcast season, it is going to be talking about motivation, and we're not necessarily coming from it from the standpoint of this is what you do to motivate someone. It's more of this is how you create the conditions where motivation is going to flourish. So it's kind of just changing the game that we're playing and the way that we're thinking about motivation and behavior in general. And I think it's an important lens to have on when we're examining this text and really just thinking about behavior in general.
Yeah. I think that a huge piece of the discussion that needs to be happening but isn't happening is how are the practices in schools contributing to the violence, the aggression, the maladaptive behaviors of society? Because the implications for the systems that we have in schools, whether they're behavior systems, academic, it is larger than just the classroom.
Yeah.
And it does come down to personal autonomy, authenticity, and overall mental health and well-being. And
yeah,
we're using these systems that
why they're not helping that.
Yeah.
Why don't we land on authenticity for a minute? Can you explain what authenticity really is to the listeners?
Yeah. So when you are being your authentic self, you are the originator of your behavior. So I think that a really good example that he talks about is someone with addiction or OCD. And they are not the originators of their behavior. For someone with OCD, the originator of a compulsive behavior would be that OCD, that the mental health disorder. A person with addiction issues, they're not the originator of that behavior. The addiction is. So behaviors can come from within the self, but it's separate from the self because there still is an external, or not an externalizing, it's more of an internalizing motivator that isn't happening from the authentic person's
like you feel pressure to do something.
Yes.
Right? You're not doing because you fully want to.
Right. So he says in here, some people who marched for civil rights in the 60s were being authentic and others were not. So people who were marching for civil rights because maybe it was trending, or maybe they wanted, I don't know, to attract the right attention. They weren't marching because they authentically agreed with civil rights or felt passionate about civil rights. They were doing it for externalizing factors. And that is a type of control that can take away from a person's autonomy. the same thing he said for people who hung around health clubs in the 90s. Some of them were being authentic. Some of them did want to, like, they did want to work out. They were concerned about their health, and they loved being at those places. And that was a part of who they were authentically. But some people were hanging around there to meet people. Some people were hanging around there to be cool, and that isn't a part of, or that isn't them being their authentic selves, because they're feeling pressure from society to do those things, or they're feeling pressure from outside themselves to do those things.
Even when you're placing pressure, though, within yourself, and like you're telling yourself a narrative, like, oh, if I don't get up and go for a run, I'm lazy. That's still not internalizing the behavior. Even though, like, you yourself are telling yourself to do this.
Yeah.
You have to put pressure on yourself, and that way you have not fully internalized it.
Right. Because that pressure is negatively influencing your feeling of autonomy and authenticity.
Yeah.
So I think that goes really smoothly into my quote, which I'm trying to find because I don't have the page number, which I'm notorious for.
You are notorious for never having the page number.
Oh, hey, I found it.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So my quote is on page 6, and it talks about narcissism.
Oh,
yeah. So he says that people, researchers, theorists have said that American culture as having a narcissistic, so American culture has a narcissistic preoccupation with the self. And those researchers or theorists might be right about a narcissistic preoccupation in this culture, but it's not a preoccupation with the self. Narcissism involves desperately seeking affirmation from others. It entails an outward focus, a concern with what others think, and that focus takes people away from their true self. That focus takes them away from being authentic. And then he says, quote, narcissism is not the result of authenticity or self-determination. It is their antithesis.
Boom.
So I had so many students, because I worked at a behavioral program. So students were commonly dysregulated, often dysregulated. And when the brain becomes dysregulated, it works in its survival state. And the survival state is only concerned about keeping itself safe. So when a brain is dysregulated, it's not being its authentic self.
Yeah.
It does not have its access to its personality.
And that's a good distinction to make, because you might think it is, though, because these kids, like, they're choosing, right, in air quotes, to like throw this thing across the room, or they're choosing to run out of the classroom and elope, right?
Yeah, no, those. Well, if you've been following us long enough, you know that behavior is never a choice, because choice requires executive functioning. To be able to predict what is going to happen after the behavior, or the results of the behavior, to be able to determine, like, okay, this is the behavior I'm going to choose, even though I know that this is the consequence that's going to happen. That is all involved in a behavior being a choice, and none of those faculties are working accessible, because all of that happens in the executive functioning brain. Prediction, rationalization, the actual act of making a choice, all of that happens with executive functioning, and executive functioning is shut off when a brain is dysregulated. So what you're seeing when a student throws something, you're seeing a student in a survival response in their survival brain, where the only thing that they're worried about is to keep themselves safe. Because it's not them, it's their brain, right?
Which can
So
also be a lot less triggering for teachers too, right? Once you
yeah.
realize that, because I think one of the things that makes it so hard to navigate behaviors is because it feels so personal. But once
Mhm,
you see these kids and you recognize that, oh, little Johnny chucking that chair, that's not because he's got necessarily a problem with me or whatever's going on.
mhm.
It's something happening within little Johnny that we have to help.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the limbic system. Yep,
Hmm.
the survival brain. So I had so many kids that were considered narcissistic
Mm.
um, at my school, and I hear it and I see it all the time on Instagram and in other social media places, and with other conversations with teachers that they this because of the behavior they view the child as narcissistic, only thinking about themselves. But what they didn't see, and I don't think they were aware of, or they're still not aware of, is that when that student is regulated, which I often saw, that student was so caring. And that
Yeah.
student was so concerned with, like me, when I was pregnant or when I was sick, or we'd have some of the smaller kids come in, and they would be so concerned with the smaller kids' well-being and making
Mhm.
sure that everybody was being appropriate. Like those kids were not narcissistic.
Yeah.
What you're seeing is dysregulation,
Bingo.
and that isn't them being their authentic selves. They're being their authentic selves when they're being empathetic and caring. When you see them being regulated and you see that behavior, that's their authentic selves.
Yeah.
So,
I love
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Oh,
Uh,
so good.
and I have to say, like, and we kind of talked about it with the choice. Like, we have to stop defining students by their behaviors,
Mm.
labeling a
Oh,
person
yeah.
by their behavior. It's a super common cognitive distortion, and it only leads to teachers stressing themselves out and
Mhm.
seeing the brain or seeing the behavior as more threatening than it is. So you have a fight or flight response to it. It is only harming us. It is only harming you, seeing the behavior as a label or making the
Yeah.
behavior a label.
And that's a big perspective shift to make. And that leads me to one of the things I wanted to talk about is why do you think people get stuck asking the wrong questions or looking at behavior from the wrong lens?
Culture.
Mm.
It's and he mentions it in the book, like
Yeah.
when he came out with the theory of self-determination and autonomy influencing motivation and pressure, like he started putting pressure back on reward systems and how
Hmm.
they're harmful. People lost their minds, which I think
Yeah.
he talks about more in chapter 2, but he got such pushback, and we see it.
I
We
know
see the
still. And guys, like this is not
visceral
new
comments.
research either. Like this is not
Uh-uh.
5 years ago. This is like
Mm.
1969.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like going to the moon.
Right. And it's not one person. This research has been conducted by various universities, various researchers. They're finding the same
Mhm.
results. But it's still when you talk about it, people still have visceral reactions and have that cognitive dissonance. And I think it's because in American culture we have meritocracy, and people who don't do the right things need to be punished, and people who do the right things need to be rewarded. And that's just not that's not a practice that leads to psychological well-being, which we're also seeing in our culture. So,
Yeah, there's quite a few unwell people.
doing well, like unwell things that
Mhm.
have major impacts on society. So I think it's cultural. Um,
Yeah.
that where it and our cultural beliefs, um, it leads us to ask the wrong questions. So we're not ever getting to a solution that really solves the problem
Yeah, and
because,
My
Yeah.
take is also that, but also that people just get stuck going through their own emotional and limbic response,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
you know?
Yeah, because
Like,
they go back to what they know.
exactly. Once their
Yeah.
emotional state starts talking, it's whatever your grandma said to you when you were a kid growing up,
Right.
you know? Not
Mhm.
necessarily what the research that could also have been around when your grandma was a
Yeah.
kid.
But
Maybe not
didn't
your grandma,
have
but
Instagram, so
exactly.
well, I think it's interesting because when a teacher's in their emotional brain, you are in the same state as that student. You do not
Exactly.
have access to executive functioning.
Mhm.
You don't. So of course you go back to what you know because you're in your
Yeah.
survivor brain.
And this is why, like, I literally talk about the brain in module 1 of Let's Not Do That Again, because to do
Mhm.
any work on your classroom and your students, you have to work on yourself.
Right. Well, that's the entirety of the workshop series.
That's entirely what we do, right?
It
Like, we
is
say, like, we help students with their behavior because we help teachers with their behavior.
with their regulation. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
it
what we
all
do.
comes down to that.
Boom.
Uh, so I know you talked a little bit about LNDTA.
Mhm.
Um, so LNDTA, how many modules is it? Like what all?
Oh, well, yeah, it's 4 modules total, but it's broken down into the foundations,
Mhm.
prevention, navigating behavior when it happens, and then maintenance. Like how you make an approach like this last and work for you, because you know how often it is when PD comes into your school and it's like, oh, this sounds great in August, and by October, everybody's forgotten.
Yeah.
So the whole module is about making sure that does not happen.
Yeah.
And LNDTA, the workshop series, the toolkit, everything that Brittany and I have created over the years since we've merged, we've actually put together a special offer for you guys because we're now one entity. And it's called the Class Hopper Pass, which is so fun, so exciting. And what this does is it gives you access for a year to everything that we have created. So this includes being in every session of LNDTA. Like you can come to every single live session that we have, which we have a few each year. You get to come to all of the workshop series, every live session. And it's nice to have that access because you might hear module 1 in September and be like, yes, this is so great. But then you might need to rehear module 1 in January when you come back from break. So you still get to be in those live sessions and ask questions. You also get access to the Village, which is our shared membership, where we're in there live every month. We have new posts, new resources coming out every single week. You get the toolkits that Brittany's created. You get my other programs, which is the Conscious Boot Camp and Finish Free. So basically, if you're someone who has been like, I really want to make this behavioral shift in my classroom, I need to do something. I'm tired of just repeating the same things year after year and feeling like I'm drowning, then this is for you. We've just merged everything together for an entire year, and you get to be our bestie for the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I will say though, with the Class Hopper Pass, we are going to close doors down periodically because we have to for like admin and maintenance stuff. So this is going to be open for enrollment from now through October 31st, and then doors are going to close for a little bit.
Yep. And if you want a payment plan,
We got those too.
yep. Yeah. So definitely check it out because it's everything we've ever done.
Yeah.
Everything, like everything that we've ever done is in the Village.
Yeah.
And then you get all of like the live
All the
resources.
courses and things that
Yeah.
are additional. So
It's pretty
check it
dope.
out. It is
Yeah.
very dope. The Dope Workshop is also included in
Oh,
the
yeah.
Class Hopper Pass. Yeah, everything
Which
is
is
in there.
ADHD. Yeah. So what is our takeaways?
Oh, I think my takeaway is to ask the right questions and to have the right lens on to get to the root of the behavior and to be able to solve what's going on and not just proliferate cycles.
Yeah. So my takeaway is if we want students to be responsible and care about the community, they have to be intrinsically motivated to do so. You can't coerce a student into being responsible and caring. You can't coerce a human being into being responsible and caring.
True.
We need to make sure we are infusing opportunities for students to be autonomous and authentic in our instruction and classroom environment. And there are a ton of strategies out there. One of my favorites is having students co-create classroom norms or values with you. And if you want to know the easiest way to do that and other strategies for autonomy in the classroom, that is what the Neurodivergent Toolkit is all about. And
which is also in the Classhopper Pass.
Yep. So yeah, you get it all.
Yeah. Which for the Classhopper Pass, we have the QR code linked on the screen, but we're also going to link it in the show notes for you guys.
Oh yeah. There it is again. If you just take a screenshot.
Beautiful.
All right.
Awesome. Oh, this is so fun. I'm so excited.
It is. We're back.
It's going to be good. Like each chapter, I feel like gets better and better as you go through this book. Also, if you do not have this book yet and you want to read along with us, we cover each chapter each week, and we will link that in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, everybody.
Right. Awesome. Well, we'll see you in the next one. And in the meantime, I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Brittany.
And we hope this podcast leaves you feeling remoralized